Hello and welcome back to Talking City. Noswaith dda, Prynhawn da, to all my fellow Welsh people out there. So, Joe, it's been a long time since I've been here. I think loads of things have changed since I've last been here, last been on the podcast. Mainly, the Welsh rugby is still in massive disarray. Only two players in the Lions. A Welsh region's being cut. Shooty Gat was apparently leaving Doctor Who. Kevin De Bruyne has played his last home game, and Phil Foden has opened up and then got left out the England squad. So yeah, it's been a mad couple of weeks. But apart from that, how's yourself? How are you keeping?
Well, I've missed the Welsh introduction. I've not added that into when I've been hosting the podcast, and I've not dared tried that. But that's a nice to hear that again. It's sort of a hectic end to the season, isn't it? We had De Bruyne's big farewell, and then Pep says in his press conference, "I will quit if I get a big squad next season." And we were hoping to maybe make an early exit from the Etihad on a quiet evening in terms of talking points, and then Pep drops that bombshell. And then I was at the Academy Stadium last night, and the youth team lifted the Premier League 2 title, and we've got last game of the season, Champions League qualification, all sorts of futures to be decided on. And the end of the season is upon us, but the talking points are not dying down.
No, and I think we'll have a load more over the next couple of months. But let's look at the game against Bournemouth on Tuesday. It was Kevin De Bruyne's final home game. They did reveal the Kevin De Bruyne walkway by the City ground. They had a fantastic light show as well, and they had the chatting King Kenny, Kevin De Bruyne, and they really put on a show. I think the City fans give him the send-off he deserved. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think De Bruyne obviously doesn't want to leave and feels that he should have been allowed to stay, or at least have a say in his departure. And when he's spoken to us, he's sort of made that clear. But at the same time, he isn't one for being the centre of attention unless he's got a ball at his feet. So he sort of sheepishly accepted the standing ovations until now. But he did, on this occasion, embrace the opportunity to say one sort of final farewell to his teammates and the fans. And there were some really lovely moments. His family were there. His two little boys delivered messages on the big screen, and that was just lovely. And it's one of them, like, he's a brilliant footballer, he's this superstar, but you also remember that he is just a quiet family man. And every time we've spoken to him about what's next, the first answer is, it's got to be right for my family. And I think that was one of the most apparent things, but also how much love there is inside the City squad and also his ex-teammates. There was lots of lovely messages that were getting massive cheers from the crowd on the big screen of former legends and former teammates that were popping up. And it was almost like they could forget about football a little bit. And Pep had a go, not a go, but he joked about Riyad Mahrez's outfit on his video, and it was just nice. I think it's been a really tough season for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, but this sort of looked like they were quite happy to just celebrate an incredible career and forget about football for a little bit and just celebrate what De Bruyne has given to City. And then they all went out on Wednesday night and did the same thing in Manchester. So it's a low-key ending for City to the season in terms of no big parade. They didn't win the FA Cup. It's not been the sort of footballing season they want, but you can tell that there is still that sort of togetherness in the squad, and it felt just the right amount of fanfare for De Bruyne. I think other players would maybe like a bit more, but I think it was enough to tell De Bruyne how loved he was without sort of embarrassing him or sort of making him feel uncomfortable.
Yes, it's a shame he missed that goal as well, because that would have been just that would have been.
I've not seen as many heads in hands around us sort of in a footballing setting since the United Europa League final when they lost on penalties, and I was in a pub full of United fans, and every single person to a man was walking around with their head in the hands when De Gea missed the penalty. And that is the only mention of United in Europa League finals that I will make in this podcast. But no, that miss was incredible. It was he probably won't have scored an easier goal for City than that chance, but it just bounced up at the wrong time. It hit the bar. He couldn't believe it. The fans behind couldn't believe it. Pep Guardiola certainly couldn't believe it. And then you see the video of his wife and his kids watching it and sort of grimacing. And I mean, all of the goals that City scored, by the way, were brilliant. And each one, I mean, Marmoush's was incredible. The sort of the move for Bernardo's and the Gundogan pass into Bernardo's path, and then even Gonzalez at the end, it sort of bends inside the post. Each one of those goals, when it was replayed on the big screen, grew sort of gasps and ahs from the crowd with every single replay. So did that miss. It was one of those where it felt like everything just stopped in time, and then everyone just took a breath, and another round of Kevin De Bruyne came in. He joked after the FA Cup final with us, like, I've got 19 trophies. I don't think a 20th is going to define my legacy. I don't think that miss is going to, he'll have forgotten it already.
So speaking of legacy, let's talk about his legacy at City. Do you think, where does he rank in the terms of Man City legends now compared to, I don't know, like Yaya Toure, David Silva, Dennis Stewart? I had to get Dennis Stewart in because his son's my mate, so I thought I'd just throw that in there. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, obviously, he is a legend, but yeah, what do you think his legacy will be coming out of this Man City team?
I think the general acceptance is that he's the best modern player by far.
Yeah.
The person we probably got to listen to is Mike Summerby, who wrote in the programme, having played with Colin Bell for so long. A lot of the people in the stands and watching City now won't have seen Colin Bell. They'll only have heard the stories. So there's a lot of sort of recency bias, if you like, of Kevin De Bruyne is clearly the greatest player to play for City in the last decade, 2, 3, 4 decades. We've not seen Colin Bell. We only know about him. But Mike Summerby wrote in the programme that De Bruyne is the only person who's ever come close to Colin Bell. And he's got a bit of bias himself. He's obviously was a teammate and a friend of Colin Bell. But just to be in that conversation, and the fact that they share the same nickname, and they will both have statues outside the Etihad, it's probably one of those where it's not really fair to name one over the other. You probably can't even compare the eras. Well, you definitely can't compare the eras, but they were playing in different teams, different styles of football. But yeah, I think what De Bruyne has done consistently, he's one of those people who can change games. And I always think when you look at the most incredible footballers, there are some where they are just very, very good at what they do, but you can expect another one to come along. So my feeling on the sort of Ronaldo Messi debate is, I think there will be another Ronaldo. I don't think there will be another Messi. If you're looking at, say, Aguero or Haaland or someone like that, there probably will be another brilliant goal scorer. Not to take away anything they do, I don't think there will be another De Bruyne, and I think that's what sets him a little bit apart. Similar to David Silva, he's probably, his longevity and his record is maybe a little bit better than Silva, but what a conversation for City fans to have all these brilliant players, and everyone's right, because all of these players mean different things to different people, and different people have different experiences and memories. And I think City will miss him, but he's also shown it's probably the right time to move on. And I think the decision from City has sort of proved itself right. There's been flashes of his brilliance, but I think it's the right time to move on. And he probably knows that, but that doesn't take away anything he's done, or any of the legacy talk or the send off or anything like that.
And yeah, so moving away from Kevin De Bruyne, because we could talk about Kevin De Bruyne all day, and I'm conscious you've got a call coming up very, very soon. So a bit more positive news as well. Rodri. Yeah, Rodri's return in the Bournemouth game. I saw some videos. I know someone saw some videos of him warming up and coming on the pitch. But yeah, nice to see him back as well after.
Do you know what? There was a lot of, obviously, Kevin De Bruyne was the focus. There were some really good goals. It was a really, really important win. City just need a point now at Fulham to secure Champions League, which you would expect them to get just on the last day, just get over the line. But the roar when Rodri warmed up was on par with anything that De Bruyne did or any of the goals. It was such a wave of relief for City fans to see him back, and he didn't particularly do anything amazing. The game was sort of in City's control, but just to have him back and in that squad, he's been around the squad and in the dressing room and on match days and watching the warm ups, and he's been in training for a few weeks. But to have him back, and if he can get another few minutes against Fulham, and I don't know whether he'll be in the Spain squad. He wants to be, but whether that's too soon. They can use the Club World Cup to get him back up to speed, and hopefully next season he can really have a go. But they were saying at the start, when he was ruled out with injury, that he wouldn't be back before the end of the season. He was determined that he would be, and I think for him, he will be delighted that he's been able to do that. And yeah, it was. I mean, looking at the midfield that ended the game, it was Rodri, Gonzalez, Marmoush. I think he was substituted just before the end, but it's starting to look a little bit more like the midfield that we'll probably see next season, which, if only for a few minutes, is a reason for City fans to be positive at the end of the campaign.
Yeah, it's a very, very tasty midfield. But after the game, you mentioned earlier that you went to the presser, hoping to get out of the Etihad a little bit early. Then Pep just went and said he'd quit if he didn't have a smaller squad. Yeah. So what do you think about those comments? Where do you think Jack Grealish is going to end up? That's pretty much. I don't know. I joke about Grealish, but I know he's been banded around at Newcastle. But yeah, it seems a bit of a mad one just to drop just before the end of the season, to be honest.
It is, and it grabs headlines. But in Pep talk, if in sort of from our perspective, we have become accustomed to how he speaks. He doesn't mean he will hand his resignation in if he has a certain amount of players versus another certain amount of players. It's not like that. He's making the point, as he has done quite a lot of the time, that he wants a smaller squad. And maybe he was in a good mood, maybe he was in a mischievous mood. It's not a serious threat. It's just a hypothetical. I have told the club I want a smaller squad, and that's a long-standing stance from him. He always says the best way to be successful is to have a competitive squad, and everyone feels like they can play. He backtracked that a little bit with the big injury crisis and the Club World Cup coming up, and he said maybe I was wrong. Maybe I need a bigger squad. They signed 4 players in January to sort of accommodate for those injuries, and now everyone's back from injury. He's got to leave 5 or 6 players out, and it was Savinho this time, and McAtee and Lewis have been out for 2 games in a row, and Kusanov and Reich and Echeverri were in the cup final squad. They weren't in the Bournemouth squad, and the question came as a result of those selections: do you feel like you need a bigger squad or a smaller squad? And he replied instantly, I've told the club that I will quit if I have a bigger squad. I need a smaller squad. It's impossible to manage. And he went on to say he spent 45 minutes deciding on who he would leave out, and it's not conducive to a competitive squad if you've got, I mean, 5 or 6 players left out is a significant number. Players like McAtee and Lewis could easily have come on against Bournemouth. And he used Echeverri as an example. He said against Crystal Palace in the cup final, he thought that those specific skills in small spaces could have been useful. And as we saw, he nearly got a goal. Then he said against Bournemouth, the way that the opposition are set up, he didn't think he could have been as useful. So he left him out of the squad. And he's got to decide on that tactically. Some players like Savinho could have started that game, but weren't in the squad altogether. And he's got to sort of rotate and keep people happy, but you know that it's not what he would like. Then it tallies into, as you mentioned, Grealish. There's players who he's basically hinted, if you can't be available for significant parts of the season, maybe you have to leave. That's what he said in recent weeks and months. It's sort of, I mean, my follow-up question to Pep was, does that then mean that there will be departures, which we sort of know there will be departures this summer, but it's interesting to hear Pep say, well, it's a question for the club, but he can't sustain the current numbers. So it feels like there will be some departures that take care of themselves, like Walker's probably going to go. De Bruyne obviously is going to go. There's some players who can leave on loan. Maybe, for example, James McAtee might look at the last couple of games and think, well, if I'm not getting in now, I'm not going to get in next season. Does he look for a transfer? We know there's interest. He's only got a year left. There'll be some fringe players like that who might look or have to look for a different club. There might be some probably in the category of Grealish and Stones and Ake maybe who have decent contracts but haven't been reliable. So if City are serious about this, they might be the ones who potentially have to go. We don't know if they will. And Guardiola's stance is always, if you have a contract, you're staying until an offer comes in that's presented. So it's not a case of picking out 7 names to get to a squad of 22 and say, right, the other 7 you're off. But I would imagine that there might be a summer coming up where there'll be some decisions have to be taken a little bit like that, and there might be some players who, a little bit like De Bruyne, will be playing the final game against Fulham, and they might not know it, or we might not know it. But the way the season's gone, and the way that City want to add some new players coming up in the summer, I think it's inevitable that some players will go. I just wouldn't be able to tell you who because of all the contract situations, and it's not as simple as saying, for example, Jack Grealish hasn't played a lot, he can go. You've got to find someone to pay a transfer fee and pay his wages and where he'll fit in, and it's an interesting situation. And I think it was going to be a busy summer anyway. But if Pep is serious about wanting a smaller squad, then it might be busy in terms of outgoings as well as incomings.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that axe would be well to. Like, it's very interesting, very interesting. But clearly, they have got a world class squad anyway. So I think they'll be all right. But speaking of a world class player as well, you sent me an article yesterday. Sorry, I'm playing with a tub of caffeinated chewing gum in the background. So if you hear me rattling anything, it's the maddest thing ever. Sorry. But yeah, you sent me the article yesterday with Phil Foden. I think we'll get on to him a little bit now as well, because obviously we just found out that he didn't get picked for the England squad, which kind of ties in with the article actually quite nicely, because yeah, he opened up to you about some recent mental health struggles, injury struggles, burnout, and as I said, I read it and I messaged you. I was like, it's a very, very, very good article. I didn't expect a footballer to be so open and so candid about it. Yeah, I do you think it's important for players like Phil and others to come out and actually speak openly about these issues?
Yeah, it was. So he spoke to us after the FA Cup final, where he'd come on as a substitute, and players leave Wembley, they pass the journalists, and we ask players if they'd like to talk, and 99% of the time, especially after a defeat, they don't want to. And Foden is one of the players who doesn't often come and speak to us. They don't have to. That's fine. So when we asked him and he did come over, that was a surprise in itself. And he was honest about the game, and he thought that, yeah, maybe Dean Henderson should have been sent off, but they weren't going to use that as an excuse. And then the question that I think most fans would want to ask is, what do you think of your personal season? Because he hasn't been as good, clearly, as the year before when he won Player of the Year. And he was quite quickly quite open and said he's had I think it's important to get the definite quote, because he said, it's been a frustrating season for me. I've had a lot of things going on off the pitch mentally. It's one of them. Sometimes there's things in life that are bigger than football. I've struggled a little bit. Hopefully next year I can get my head mentally right, get back where I left the season before, because I know what I'm capable of doing. I know if everything was okay, I'd definitely be better on the field. And he said the club have supported him with that. And it's one of them where you don't want to, it's not our business to know what those problems are, but I think it's just a reminder that he's a 24-year-old lad who's been playing elite football since he was 17, with all this pressure for club and country, and he's won so many things, and it's been so intense, and he's barely had a break. It's a reminder that he's human, and the eyes of the world are on him and his family, whatever they do. And if he has a drop in form like he has done this season, there has been a lot of sort of scrutiny and questions, and probably a lot of gaps plugged in where it felt like he was quite relieved to get something off his chest and just say, "This has been happening. There are things in life that are bigger than football." And it was refreshing to hear a player say that on his own terms, and I think the reception to that has been quite positive as well. And hopefully he sees that and feels better as well because of that. But another significant thing that he said about his form recently is that he's been playing with injury. And the derby against United, he had a tackle with Casemiro and sort of felt something, but carried on for a little bit. And then Pep noticed he was struggling, so took him off. And turns out he had ligament damage and he was off. But because of I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I think he said of everything, he just wanted to get back and play football as quick as possible. And then maybe he rushed himself back. And I said, "Is there a sort of time frame on when your ankle will be healed?" And he said he needs a few weeks off without playing football, but you can't get that because you've got the Club World Cup. And he suggested that he would ask City and England whether it was better to rest it for a couple of weeks at the end of the season, and not play the England fixtures. They've got Andorra in a World Cup qualifier, then a friendly against Senegal. It makes sense, and it appears that England have agreed that Foden won't play in that squad. Whether he would have got in on merit because he's not playing, and he's not playing to his best either. There are probably other players who would be in better form, but it feels like he needs a break of some sort before the summer. He said he's not thought about the Club World Cup and he wants to deal with it when it comes, and hopefully it can be sort of a springboard back into form. But yeah, I think it feels like it's a positive thing that he's not in the England squad. But no, it was a remarkable mix zone because we had Foden saying all this sort of personal, honest stuff. We had De Bruyne telling us that he probably won't play in the Club World Cup because City still haven't spoken to him about it, and if he gets injured, who else is going to look after him? He's got to think about the next stage of his career. Bernardo comes out and says, you realise in these seasons who you can go to war with and who the real ones are in the dressing room. The amount of, I know fans don't care about what we do at games, but the amount of times we stand in these mix zones and get ignored by all the players and they don't want to speak, to have 3 interviews like that, especially after a cup final defeat, was sort of extraordinary. And it was really interesting to hear the different mindsets of those 3 players talking about completely different things. But yeah, you can definitely tell there is a lot of strong emotions in the dressing room, I think is probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, so bless him. I think it's actually really good that he actually spoke, and I think just get a bit. He is 24, man. I keep forgetting he's 24. He's still a kid. Like, essentially, he's still a kid. I remember being 24. I was an idiot, and he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. And of course, it's going to take a strain and burn him out. So for him to come out and be so open and honest, I think he should be revered. And fair play to him. Mad respect to him for saying it. So quickly going now. Last game of the season, Fulham away. I think we're City on 60, 68 points, and then everyone else is on 65, 66, and then Forest are on 65. So it's the top 7 realistically is absolutely mad, like absolutely mad. But what are you expecting? Last game of the season, are you expecting City to? I mean, you should expect City to get over the line against Fulham, surely.
I mean, Fulham are a very good team. They had a chance last week if results had gone their way, maybe they could have finished 8th if they'd beaten City, and maybe 8th could have got them a backdoor route into the Conference League, but that would have relied on, I think, Chelsea and Newcastle finishing outside the top 5 and Chelsea winning the Conference League. It was unlikely anyway, but now, because of other results, that won't happen. So Fulham have nothing to play for, if you like. That probably will help City. I would have thought Bournemouth was going to be a tricky game, but City just approached it really professionally and, as I say, scored some good goals and played very well. They need a point because Chelsea and Forest play each other, so both of them can't overtake City. Even if Villa win, I think they would need to win 17-0 to draw level with City on goal difference. It might not be that exact score, but if City get a point, it's extremely unlikely that they will drop out of the top five. They'll be looking to win it. I think there's a lot of players who might be sort of playing with a point to prove. I don't think City will decide any futures necessarily on one game, but it could be players playing for City for the last time. It could be they're definitely all playing to get into the Champions League next year. They will want to finish on a high. It's always a good away end at Fulham. The fans are always up for it. It's always an away day in the sun at this time of the season, which is quite nice. So, I mean, City fans have, considering the success they've had a difficult season. I think the players will want to give a little bit back, especially after the cup final last week. I can see it being one where City go out and make sure they do the job themselves. If I just look at the table, yeah, so they could even finish. I'm struggling to work out the goal difference because it doesn't say it, but the 3 points behind Arsenal, there is a chance that they could finish second. I don't think they will, but there are still things to play for City. There's Club World Cup places probably up for grabs. So I don't think it's going to be one of those dead rubber games. I'm a little bit surprised it's not on telly. I think the TV cameras have obviously gone to Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea. They've gone to Liverpool on the final day just to probably see them lift the trophy. But then United against Aston Villa. I know Aston Villa can get into the Champions League, but United are debating whether they're going to finish 16th or 17th without a trophy. So that's an odd choice. I would have thought City Fulham might have been one where the TV cameras would go. But yeah, it's a good game to finish, I think, considering everything. And yeah, City have had to work hard at Craven Cottage the last couple of years, but they've always come up with, they've just edged it against sort of a good home side. And I would imagine it will be a similar sort of story on Sunday.
I think there's, quickly looking, I think there's 8 goals between Arsenal and City. So
Right.
who knows? Stranger things. Aston Villa could be United.
Do you know what? I take it back. They've got Southampton last. I don't think there's going to be an 8-goal swing and Arsenal losing at home to Southampton. So sorry for getting anyone's hopes up there and bringing them crashing down. Although Southampton did stop City the other day, so you never know.
Well, I used to live by St Mary's down in Southampton, so who knows? Who knows? Stranger things have happened. But yeah, that's it for this episode of the Talking City podcast. It's nice to be back on after a while, and now I'm off for a while. I'm going to sunnier climes over in Europe for a little bit. But Joe, it has been an absolute pleasure being on the podcast with you again. Always love working with you and chatting with you. It's really fun. It's really fun. I really enjoyed these. So thank you for today, and I hope you have a good week. Are you going to the game on Sunday?
Yeah, myself and Simon will be down at Craven Cottage, and with it not being on telly, you can follow our live blog and get all the updates and insights on what's happening. And Kevin De Bruyne's last game, of course. So we'll see if he has anything to say to us after that, and especially considering he doesn't expect to be playing at the Club World Cup. So yeah, any fans down there are going to see, probably, unless he's on the bench and doesn't come off, probably Kevin De Bruyne's last game as a City player. So as well as the Champions League, there is a bit of history there to watch out for.
What a great way to get people to come to the game. Also, I'll put the link to Joe's article about Phil Foden in the description as well, so you can all read it. Please do. It's a really fascinating read and really open and honest, and it's really, really good read. So thanks for listening, and we will be back. Oh, it's a bank holiday Monday, so we won't be back on Monday, actually. We will be back on Tuesday for another edition of Talking City. Until then, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I got to get a film reference in somewhere. So yes, we will see you all next Tuesday after the season. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? 8-goal swing, Man City finish second.